Okay, this video is about multiplying and dividing with polynomials, and this is probably going to be the hardest material that you've seen so far, especially the dividing polynomials. So, take extra care, maybe watch the video a couple of times this weekend, and really pay attention to different things that I'm doing. Be ready to come to class with questions about what's going on and exactly what parts are unclear or confusing. Alright, but first let's start with multiplying. Multiplying is pretty easy. You've seen this before. You know how to distribute, so let's start there. So we're going to multiply these polynomials. First I've got 3x times 4x squared times the 3x times the negative 1. Once you distribute and multiply these, so I've got 3x times 4x squared plus 3x times 3x plus 3x times negative 1. Once I do the multiplying, the parentheses are gone, so I'm not worried about those anymore. The first term, 3x times 4x squared, will be 12x cubed. The second term will be 3x times 3x, so that's 9x squared. The third term will be 3x times negative 1, so minus 3. And that's it. Cubic trinomial, and I'm done. The second example, I'm doing the same thing, just distributing. So 5x squared times 2x plus 5x squared times the 1. 5x squared times 2x is 10x cubed plus 5x squared. Here I've got a cubic binomial. Two terms, so it's a binomial. Okay, now we've got two binomials that are being multiplied. So again, I need to distribute. This time I need to distribute the x to both parts. So I'm going to have x times 3x plus x times 1. And then I also have the minus 4 that gets distributed. So I have a negative 4 times 3x and a negative 4 times 1. This is the same as saying I'm going to take x times 3x plus 1, and I'm going to take the minus 4 times 3x plus 1. Sometimes in your book it's written like that. So just so you're clear, I'm doing the same thing though. Distributing, no problem. X times 3x is 3x squared. X times 1 is just 1x. Negative 4 times 3x is negative 12x. And negative 4 times 1, just negative 4. I can go further and combine like terms. So now I have 3x squared minus 11x minus 4. And I'm done. And this is a quadratic, because it's degree 2, trinomial, 3 terms. Alright, so let's try this one. So I've got 2x that's being multiplied by 2x minus 5, plus 5 times the 2x minus 5. Distributing, so 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times the minus 5 is negative 10x. For this one I'm distributing the 5, so it's plus 10x. And then 5 times the negative 5 is negative 25. Combine like terms. So I have 4x squared. The negative 10x and a positive 10x reduce, cancel out, they make 0. So I just have 4x squared minus 25. And I'm done. That would be called a quadratic binomial. Okay, now for the dividing part. So before we divide with polynomials, you first need to remember, how do you long divide anyways? So if I take 381 divided by 9, do you remember what to do? First you're looking for, does the 9 go into 3? No, it doesn't. So does 9 go into 38? It does, 4 times. So then I multiply. And what do I do with the 38 and 36? You subtract them. So I take 38 minus 36, that becomes 2. Bring down the 1. So now I have 9 goes into 21 how many times? Twice. I get 18. I'm subtracting again. So 21 minus 18 is 3. What do you do with that remainder? Sure, you can add the decimal point, add a 0, bring it down, but what does that 3 really represent? Well, let's try to look at it as a decimal, and maybe that will help us to figure out an answer. If I bring down the 0, 9 goes into 30 3 times, so it's 27. Subtracting again, I got 3 left over. I could bring down another 0. Again, it's 3. So it's going to be 3, 3, 3, 3 repeating. So what is 0.3 repeating as a fraction? It's 1/3. How could I get 1/3 going back to my original where I wanted to stop right here? How can I use this 3 and what I'm dividing by to get a fraction of 1/3? It's 3 over 9, right? I have my leftover 3 over my divisor. The divisor is what you're dividing by. The divisor out here. Divisor. So your remainder goes as a fraction. What does this mean to do with the 42 and the 1/3? Am I multiplying them or am I adding them? You're adding. So that's going to be important when I'm looking at dividing polynomials. I need to remember that. It's adding the remainder, and the remainder, so the remainder here, turns into a fraction over the divisor. Okay, so let's try a problem. Here I've got 4x squared minus 6x plus 8 divided by 2. So I'm looking at how many times does 2 go into 4x squared? What do I have to multiply 2 by to get 4x squared? You have to multiply by 2 to get the 4. What about the x squared? There needs to be an x squared up there. So 2x squared multiplied by 2 gives me 4x squared. What happens when I subtract these? It's 0. They're gone. Bring down the next term. How many times does 2 go into negative 6x? So what do I have to multiply 2 by to get negative 6x? To multiply it by negative 3x. So now when I multiply negative 3x times 2, I get negative 6x. When I subtract these, I'm subtracting a negative, so that makes it a plus. So I've got negative 6x plus 6x. Well, that's 0 again. Bring down your next term. So now I have 8. How many times does 2 go into 8? 4 times. So plus 4. Multiply. So I have 8. I subtract, and I get 0. So this time I have no remainder. Okay, let's try this next one. Now I'm looking for how many times does 3xy go into 3x to the 4th y squared. So do I need to multiply the coefficients by anything? Do I need to multiply 3 by anything to get 3? No, just a 1, right? Okay, so you can write the 1 or you don't have to. What do I have to multiply x by to get x to the 4th? X cubed. And what do I have to multiply y by to get y squared? Just y. So now I multiply this with this. So it becomes 3x to the 4th y squared. I subtract these. When I subtract, it's gone. Bring down the next term. So minus 6x y cubed. So what do I have to multiply 3xy by to get negative 6xy cubed? Well, I have to multiply 3 by a negative 2 to get the negative 6. Do I have to multiply x by anything to get x? Nope. And what do I have to multiply y by to get y cubed? I have to multiply by y squared. So now I multiply these two. Minus 6x, y cubed. I'm subtracting. So when I subtract a negative, becomes plus, so those are gone. Bring down the next term, 9xy. What do I have to multiply 3xy by to get 9xy? Well, I have to multiply 3 by 3 to get the 9. I don't have to multiply x by anything, and I don't have to multiply y by anything because they're already there. So I multiply 3 times 3xy, I get 9xy. Subtract these, no remainder again. So my answer when I divide these is x cubed y minus 2y squared plus 3. That's what I get when I divide. Okay, let's try dividing by a binomial. It's a little different. Since I have two terms out here, I have to look at the first two terms underneath the division symbol. Okay? But you can't look at two things at once. So first I'm gonna think to myself, I've got an x in the divisor. I've got an x squared right there. So what do I have to multiply x by to get x squared? You have to multiply by x. So I'm going to multiply x times x, and I also have to multiply x times the negative 3. Because whatever I multiply, I have to multiply by this entire divisor, that entire thing. So that becomes a negative 3x. I'm going to subtract again. So when I subtract this, I can change this to the opposite signs. So I got x squared minus x squared, gone. Negative 7x plus 3x is a negative 4x. Bring down the 12. Okay, so now I'm looking, I've got an x out in front here and a negative 4x. What do I have to multiply x by to get negative 4x? A negative 4. So then I distribute again. Negative 4 times x is a negative 4x. Negative 4 times negative 3 is a positive 12. So now when I subtract a negative, so that becomes a plus, and I subtract a positive here, makes that a negative. So then negative 4x plus 4x, gone. Positive 12 plus a negative 12, gone. So the remainder is 0. So my answer when I divide is just x minus 4.